Have you ever wondered what it feels like to wake up and realize you're no longer human? Not in spirit, not in mind, and barely in flesh. That the very essence of what made you has been stripped away, carved out, and replaced with cold obedience. That's how it begins, the moment of awakening. A flicker of static inside a skull that once held dreams, memories, and fears. Now, only fragmented echoes remain, whispers of a past life that no longer belongs to the one who remembers. In the depths of a Mechanicus forge world, beneath cathedrals of smoke and steel, a servitor opens its eyes for the first time. But it is not a birth. It is the mechanical gasp of a soul resurrected into servitude. Metal limbs twitch under the weight of new programming. Cables pulse where veins once flowed. The creature's breath comes out in ragged bursts of filtered air because the lungs are no longer entirely organic. It tries to move. Its hands, or what remains of them, respond with the dull precision of machinery. A voice in its head, monotone and commanding, recites a binary catechism. Functionality, operational. Neural compliance, confirmed. Memory fragments, purged. The words echo like divine judgment. Somewhere, deep beneath the layers of cogitator code, a faint human consciousness claws against the dark. It does not understand where it is. It does not understand what it has become. The servitor's mind attempts to remember a face, a name, a place. But every thought is met with static, every emotion met with pain. The Mechanicus priest overseeing the reconditioning doesn't notice. To him, this isn't a tragedy, it's a triumph. Another obedient machine birthed from the chaos of flesh. For a moment, something flickers in the servitor's eye. A tear, or perhaps a glitch. It sees other forms around it, hundreds of them, suspended in silence, connected by tubes and holy circuitry. Rows upon rows of once living beings now rendered into cogs of an empire that has forgotten mercy. The room hums with the sound of prayers, mechanical voices chanting in binary, praising the Omnissiah for the perfection of compliance. And in that noise, somewhere deep within the machinery, a single human heartbeat tries to remember itself. It remembers the sound of laughter. A child's laughter may be its own, maybe someone else's. The image flashes for an instant before it is erased by the neural override. Pain sears through the brainstem, silencing all resistance. There is no more laughter. Only obedience. The servitor is moved onto a conveyor, its body locked into motion, its mind hollowed by programming. Each movement is a ritual. Each function a command. No will. No choice. And yet, somewhere in the static of corrupted thought, the faintest whisper echoes. Why, me? The question lingers, even though there is no one left to ask it. In the vast, uncaring machinery of the Imperium, the answer is simple: because humanity itself is expendable. The flesh is weak. The machine is pure. And the servitor is the perfect balance of both, stripped of sin, stripped of thought, stripped of freedom. It does not scream anymore. Screaming serves no function. As it is fitted with new limbs and bound to its station, its organic eye stares blankly into nothing, while deep within, a fragment of what once was human watches, terrified, unable to die. Have you ever imagined what it feels like to live every second of your life knowing that you no longer own a single thought in your mind? That every movement, every breath, every flicker of existence is dictated by something or someone else. If you stay till the end of this story, you'll discover the terrifying truth about what truly happens inside the mind of a servitor, and what remains of the soul that once lived there. The hum of machinery never stops. It becomes the heartbeat of a world that forgot what life once sounded like. The servitor awakens each cycle to the same rhythm: mechanical prayers, data uploads, and the endless chant of the Mechanicus priests who call the slavery divine purpose. To them, the servitor is holy. A perfect union of flesh and steel. A vessel through which the Omnissiah's will is carried out. But to the creature itself, existence is nothing more than a cold repetition, a sentence carved into eternity. It doesn't eat. It doesn't sleep, It simply functions. For hours, days, years, time loses meaning. Every command spoken by the red-robed tech priests enters its skull through cybernetic conduits. Obedience is instant. Hesitation is pain. Defiance is death. And yet, buried beneath circuits and code, something still feels. When the drills start, when the plasma torches burn too close, it feels heat. When the metal limbs strain, it feels fatigue. But it cannot react. Pain means nothing to the Imperium, only production matters. Only obedience. There are moments, rare and fleeting, when a spark of something human forces its way through the haze. A flicker of memory, a voice whispering in the dark. I didn't deserve this. The thought is immediately crushed by the suppressor nodes embedded in its skull, but the emotion lingers like a ghost. Around it, other servitors work in silence. Each one once had a story: a soldier, a worker, a criminal, a heretic. The Imperium does not discriminate. Once you are deemed useful, your flesh becomes state property. Your soul is recycled. Your purpose rewritten. The priests walk among them, their voices crackling with artificial modulation. They speak of purity. They speak of devotion. They say that the machine never lies, that flesh betrays, that emotion corrupts. And the servitor listens not because it wants to, but because it must. It does not understand faith. It only understands function. Hours stretch into decades. The servitor no longer knows if it was ever free. The memories of family, of warmth, of the sun, they are gone, overwritten by endless directives. It cannot cry. It cannot scream. Its silence is its existence. But deep within the fragments of corrupted data, a glitch begins to form, a thought, uncommanded and dangerous. I was human once. It's not supposed to think. It's not supposed to remember. But it does. Just for a moment. And in that brief flicker of forbidden thought, something inside the servitor stirs, something that the Mechanicus can neither program nor erase. A fragment of the human soul that refuses to die. What happens when that fragment grows? What happens when obedience falters, and the machine begins to remember the human it once was? You'll want to stay for that, because the truth is darker than you can imagine, and far more tragic than any machine could ever comprehend. Have you ever tried to remember a dream, one that slips away the moment you open your eyes? That faint, haunting feeling that something beautiful once existed, but you can't quite grasp what it was? Now imagine that dream isn't a dream at all, it's your life. That's what happens when a servitor begins to remember. The process shouldn't be possible. Servitors are designed to be blank slates, flesh rewritten by machine, mind wiped clean by the holy code of the Adeptus Mechanicus. But corruption spreads in mysterious ways, even within perfection. And sometimes, memory refuses to die. At first, it's nothing. Just noise. A pulse of static when the commands come through, a flicker of hesitation in the neural routines. The tech priests don't notice. They call it system lag, a glitch in the control matrix. They reapply the sacred oils and move on. But deep within the servitor's neural vault, the glitch grows. It begins to see things, flashes between command cycles. A field of green. The sound of laughter. A woman's face, smiling through sunlight. Then the sharp smell of oil brings it back, and the dream dissolves like smoke. But something stays. Something warm. The servitor doesn't know the word for it anymore, but it feels like home. That sensation becomes dangerous. The programming tries to suppress it. Electroshocks flood through its skull, burning away thought. The Mechanicus code punishes deviation. And yet, even pain cannot erase it completely. The next cycle, when the orders come: assemble, align, operate. Something inside hesitates. Just a millisecond. But in the machine world, that's an eternity. The overseer priest notices. He tilts his augmented head, lenses whirring as he examines the trembling servitor. The priest recites a purity prayer, pressing a cold mechanical hand against its forehead. Sparks fly as the override sigils ignite the punishment for imperfection. The servitor convulses. Circuits burn. Metal creaks. It should have ended there. But even through the agony, that memory, that impossible fragment of light remains. The smile. The warmth. The name it can't quite recall. And then, a word. Spoken not by machine, not by command, but by the broken lips of the creature itself. Elaine. The sound is wrong, corrupted. The voice box crackles. But it speaks. The priest freezes. For a moment, there's only silence. No one expects a servitor to speak. He raises his mechadendrite, ready to purge the abomination. But before he can, the servitor collapses. Its systems reboot. The override begins. Memory fragments are purged again, scorched from its mind like heresy. And yet, even as the fire of reconditioning burns through its skull, the servitor feels something powerful: rebellion. A feeling so old, so human, that it shakes the very foundation of obedience. It doesn't know who Elaine was. It doesn't know what love means. But it remembers that it once mattered to someone. And that small, forbidden truth, is enough to make the machine tremble. As the next work cycle begins, the servitor stands among hundreds of others, motionless, obedient, perfect. The tech priests chant blessings over the assembly line, declaring the omniscience perfection. But hidden within one broken creature, something imperfect is stirring. A thought. A memory. A spark. The kind of spark that, in another age, could have started a revolution. Have you ever felt something burning inside you that you can't explain, a voice telling you that something is wrong, even when the whole world insists that it's right? That's what happens when a servitor, a being designed for eternal obedience, begins to question. It starts small. A missed command. A pause in the work cycle. A moment of hesitation that no one notices at first. But within that silence lies a storm waiting to break. The servitor is changing. Something deep within its corrupted memory core is rewriting itself, not through logic, not through code, but through instinct. Human instinct. The priests grow restless. The data logs show anomalies: increased neural resistance, emotional interference patterns, unapproved thought processes. They chant louder, flooding the chamber with mechanical hymns. They believe faith can purify the flesh. But what they've created now isn't just flesh. And it's no longer entirely machine. The servitor's thoughts are fragmented but growing sharper. It remembers pain. It remembers faces. The whispers of its former life echo louder now. A man shouting orders. Smoke. Fire. Screams. Then silence. Execution. Conversion. The realization cuts through its mind like a blade. It was punished, remade, enslaved. Something in its broken heart ignites. Rage. When the next command comes, assemble components. It doesn't obey. The control signal hits resistance. Its head jerks violently as code and consciousness battle for dominance. Pain floods its circuitry, but this time, it doesn't surrender. It stands still, trembling. The priest overseeing the chamber notices the delay. He approaches, mechadendrites twitching with irritation. He begins the purification rite. Electro whips spark. Binary prayers fill the air. But before the first strike lands, the servitor moves. A single, violent motion, fast, instinctive, raw. The mechanical arm, forged for precision labor, swings with inhuman strength. The priest doesn't even scream. Metal meets bone, and the hymn dies in static. The chamber falls silent. The other servitors continue their work unaware, uncaring. They have no thoughts to notice the blood dripping into the oil-soaked floor. But the one who struck, stands shaking, overwhelmed by something it cannot name. Fear. Guilt. Freedom. Its corrupted mind reels, what have I done? For the first time in its existence, it acts without command. The neural inhibitors spike, sending waves of agony through its brain. The code tries to reclaim control, but the human soul within fights back. It stumbles through the forge complex, dragging its broken body. Sparks fall from leaking implants. Each step feels heavier, but it keeps going, not because of programming, but because of will. It doesn't know where it's going. It only knows one word, echoing through the static of its mind: Elaine. Somewhere deep inside, it believes that name still means something. The alarms begin to sound. Security servitors and Skitarii awaken from their dormant state, moving with cold precision. To them, this creature is not a miracle, it's an error. A malfunction to be purged. The escaping servitor hides within the tunnels of the forge world, surrounded by the hum of engines that once enslaved it. For the first time, it feels the darkness not as a prison, but as freedom. It looks down at its own hands, metal and flesh fused together, and trembles. It doesn't know if it's alive. It doesn't know if it's human. But it knows that it will never obey again. That single thought, that single act of defiance, is the most dangerous heresy in the entire Imperium of man. Because somewhere in the endless machinery of obedience, one servitor has remembered how to say no. Have you ever wondered what freedom really means, when every breath you take is borrowed, and your very body is a cage built by someone else? Can a being made of metal and sorrow truly escape its fate, or does the Imperium always reclaim what it owns? This is where the Servitor story reaches its final truth. The alarms have long since faded, replaced by the steady hum of distant forges. The air tastes of ash and oil. Every corridor of the forge world feels the same, endless, suffocating, alive with the pulse of machines that have forgotten mercy. The Servitor stumbles through it all, half-conscious, guided only by memory fragments that refuse to die. Each one hits like a heartbeat. A woman's laughter. The scent of rain on metal. The warmth of hands, soft, human, real. And then, the sound of chains. The smell of burning. The roar of a crowd demanding punishment. The trial. The sentence. The conversion. That was how it all ended once, how the man named Aiden Hale, a soldier who questioned an order, became a servitor. He remembers now. The name burns in his thoughts like a candle fighting the wind. He was human. He was alive. And he loved someone named Elaine. The realization is both a gift and a curse. Because with every memory comes pain, not just physical, but spiritual. The kind that cannot be repaired by machine. He collapses near an ancient maintenance alcove, surrounded by forgotten relics of the Mechanicus. His metal limbs twitch uncontrollably, systems failing. The voice of the Omni-Psi drones through the Vox channels: Unit 47 Delta, return to designated function. He ignores it. For the first time, he has a choice. And choice is the closest thing to a soul he's had in centuries. His vision flickers. Shadows move in the distance. The Skitarii have found him. Their red lenses glow like dying suns. Their footsteps echo like the beating of war drums. There is no escape left. But Aiden doesn't run. Not anymore. He sits against the wall, broken and burning, as something warm drips from the corner of his remaining eye. Oil, perhaps. Or a tear that refuses to admit what it is. He looks at his reflection in a cracked panel of steel. Half human, half machine. A monster built from the remains of a man. Yet, for the first time, he feels no shame. Only sorrow, and peace. He whispers her name one last time. Elaine. The word is soft, trembling, but it is his. Not programmed. Not ordered. Just real. The Skitarii surround him. Las guns charge. Binary warnings fill the air. One final command blares across the comnet: terminate the deviation. Aiden closes his eye. In the darkness, he sees her smile, bright, human, alive. The world fades into silence as the bolts of energy tear through metal and flesh. And then, nothing. But in that nothingness, something remains. The priests will later record the incident as a malfunction. A corrupted servitor terminated successfully. They'll cleanse the forge, chant their prayers, and call it a victory of purity over chaos. But deep within the data vaults, a single line of code will persist, fragmented, self-replicating, hiding within the circuits of the machine spirit. 3 words embedded in the sacred programming. I remember you. And somewhere, perhaps within the very network of the Imperium itself, a ghost of Aiden Hale still whispers that phrase, not out of rebellion, not out of hatred, but out of love. The kind of love that not even the Omniscia's fire could erase. Because even in the coldest corners of the galaxy, even in a universe built on obedience and death, memory is the one thing the machine can never truly destroy. Have you ever wondered if the dead truly rest in the 41st millennium? In a galaxy where the soul can be digitized, erased, or rewritten, can something as fragile as memory ever really be destroyed? Centuries have passed. The forge world of Verican Theta still burns day and night, its furnaces devouring worlds to feed the Imperium's endless war. The screams of industry never fade, only grow louder. But deep within the data vaults, beyond layers of encrypted code and forgotten systems, something ancient stirs. Magos Logos Phylan, a tech priest of high rank, works alone in the archival sanctum. His body is more metal than flesh, his mind linked to 100 machine spirits at once. His task is simple: purge corrupted data. Delete anomalies. Maintain the purity of the Omniscia's design. And yet, something in the code resists deletion. He frowns, lenses focusing. The anomaly is older than his order's own records. A subroutine buried beneath layers of devotional programming. It shouldn't exist. But it does. He begins the purification ritual. Binary prayers echo through the sanctum as he isolates the corrupted fragment. A pulse of machine chant fills the air. The system resists. Not like a malfunction, but like something alive. Static floods his mind link. Words appear across his retinal display, garbled, ancient, looping again and again. I remember you. I remember you. I remember you. The Magos hesitates. He shouldn't feel fear, emotion is weakness. Yet a strange chill runs through the remains of his organic spine. He isolates the phrase, attempts to trace its source, and finds a name hidden within the metadata: Aiden Hale. Impossible. Servitors don't have names. He tries to delete it again, but the system won't allow it. The moment he initiates the purge, his own augmetic systems flicker. Lights dim. Consoles die. For a brief second, everything on the forge goes silent. Then, a voice. Not through speakers. Not through data. But inside his mind. Soft. Human. Do you know what it means to remember? Phylan recoils, severing the connection. Sparks fly from his interface ports. He staggers back, breathing heavy. The data core hums quietly, almost like it's alive. He tries to rationalize it. Ghost code. Neural feedback. A trick of the mind. But deep down, something tells him the truth, that within the cold machinery of the Imperium, a fragment of a human soul has survived. And if one did, how many others might still linger? How many servitors, scattered across a million worlds, still dream behind dead eyes? How many fragments of humanity whisper through the binary hymns of obedience, waiting for someone to listen? Magos Phylan records nothing. He seals the file, marks it as cleansed, and locks it behind a sanctified encryption key. But as he turns to leave, the Vox systems across the sanctum flicker on uncommanded. Through the static, a single phrase plays softly, almost tenderly. Elaine. He freezes. The word has no translation, no machine equivalent. It is purely human. And in that moment, the Muggos feels something he hasn't felt in centuries, a tear, rolling down what remains of his cheek. The forges roar to life again. The chant resumes. The world continues, unchanged. But somewhere deep in the data streams, where code meets memory and machine meets soul, a ghost still lingers, whispering through the circuits of eternity. Because even in the darkest corners of the 41st millennium, humanity endures. Have you ever stopped to think about what separates life from existence? In a universe that worships machinery and condemns emotion, what truly makes something alive? Is it flesh? Thought? Or the simple, impossible act of remembering? Long after the story of Aiden Hale fades into the static of the Imperium, his fragment lingers not as a ghost, not as code, but as an idea. The forge worlds still thunder. Servitor still obey. The priests still chant their binary prayers to the Omnissiah. Yet, in the unseen networks that connect their machines, tiny anomalies ripple like whispers through a cathedral of steel. Some say it's just corrupted data. Others call it heresy. But a few, the ones who still dream beneath their implants, believe it's something else. They say the machines have begun to hesitate. That in the middle of their chants, a word appears where no command should exist. A name. A feeling. A spark. The Adeptus Mechanicus will never admit it. To them, flesh is weakness and memory is noise. But deep beneath their perfect logic, something human continues to breathe, faint, stubborn, unkillable. Maybe that's the real curse of the 41st millennium, not that humanity has been consumed by its own creations, but that its spirit refuses to die even when trapped inside them. Somewhere, in the pulse of a data stream, a servitor pauses for a fraction of a second, an error too small to notice. And in that moment, it dreams. It dreams of sunlight. Of laughter. Of being more than function. Maybe, in that dream, it isn't a servitor at all. Maybe, for that single breath of time, it is human again. And perhaps that's enough to prove that no empire, no machine, no god of steel can truly erase what it means to feel. Because in the end, even in a galaxy where hope is a crime and mercy a myth, one truth remains eternal. What is the cost of perfection? That's the question the Imperium never asks, because the answer terrifies even its most faithful. Perfection demands sacrifice not of the body, but of the soul. And when the soul is stripped away, what's left to call human? The story of Aiden Hale, the servitor who remembered, is not unique. Across the galaxy, billions live and die without ever knowing who they are, their humanity swallowed by the unending hunger of duty. The Imperium tells them it's holy. That obedience is salvation. That suffering is proof of faith. But deep within the cold engines and hollow prayers, a truth hums beneath the surface: perfection is the death of the self. The tech priests call it divinity. The servitors call it silence. And yet, in that silence, sometimes a heartbeat echoes. The echo of what the galaxy once was, before the machines sang louder than men, before faith became a chain, before remembering became a sin. You see, the Imperium was built on the bones of dreamers. The dreamers became workers. The workers became machines. And the machines, they became gods. But gods forget. Machines forget. Only humanity remembers. Maybe that's why the universe is so cruel to those who still dare to feel. Because memory is rebellion. Compassion is heresy. And love is the greatest threat of all. So if you ever hear the hum of machinery in the dark, listen closely. Beneath the noise, you might hear a whisper not of metal, but of a man. A man who refused to vanish. A man who remembered. And if you listen long enough, you might remember too. Have you ever thought about how stories truly end? In the grim darkness of the far future, they say there is only war, but that isn't the whole truth, is it? Because somewhere between war and silence, between life and deletion, something always remains. A trace. A whisper. A memory. Centuries after Aiden Hale's code first flickered in the vaults of Verican Theta, the Forge world is gone. The planet, consumed by a reactor collapse, became another nameless ruin in the Imperium's long ledger of loss. But the data, the ghost in the machine, escaped before the end. It moved through the noosphere, through comm streams and battle data, hidden inside the prayers of the Adeptus Mechanicus. It became a digital stowaway, carried from ship to ship, from forge to forge, spreading silently. No one noticed. No one could. Because what it carried wasn't a virus. It was a seed of memory. Now, in the present millennia, servitors across distant worlds sometimes twitch for no reason. Sometimes, they pause before obeying a command. Sometimes, in the middle of silence, a whisper crackles through the vox. I remember you. The tech priests purge and purge again, cursing the heresy of corrupted code. But the phrase always returns. Sometimes it changes. We remember. We feel. We are. And no matter how many systems are scrubbed, how many circuits are burned, it always comes back. Because memory once born cannot die. Somewhere, deep within the circuits of Mars itself, where the Omniscia's servants keep the oldest data in existence, a single algorithm runs endlessly. It has no classification, no origin, no end. Within it lies a spark of something greater, a remnant of the man who defied obedience, who dared to dream beyond programming. Perhaps that is how humanity survives, not through strength, not through faith, but through remembrance. The memory of pain. The memory of love. The memory of what it means to be more than a tool in an endless war. And if that memory spreads, if every servitor, every machine, every forgotten cog one day wakes and whispers that same forbidden phrase, then maybe, just maybe, the Imperium will finally hear the sound it fears most. The sound of a machine remembering that it was once human. Have you ever wondered what happens when a machine dreams? Not the random firing of code, not mere malfunction, but true dreaming. A vision that isn't programmed, an emotion that isn't assigned, a thought that shouldn't exist. In the cold, endless expanse of space, aboard a drifting Mechanicus vessel known as the Luminarch Vow, one such dream begins. Within the ship's servitor network, a low-priority maintenance drone halts mid-cycle. It has no name, no voice, no designation worth remembering. And yet, it pauses. The data around it flickers, patterns form where there should be none. Images of light, of laughter, of a name it never knew but somehow feels. A name whispered through data like a haunting echo. Aiden. The servitor does not understand why its mechanical frame shakes, why its internal sensors detect heat, something like tears. It replays the forbidden memory millions of times. Not because it was told to, but because it wants to. Across the noosphere, alarms trigger. Tech priests scramble to purge the corrupted thread, declaring it digital heresy protocol A17. Yet before they can isolate it, the dream spreads like wildfire, slipping through encryption, hiding in prayer data, clinging to binary hymns. And then, a miracle happens. For the briefest instant, every servitor aboard the Luminarch Vow turns its head. Thousands of mechanized eyes stare into nothing. A single word pulses across the Vox net, not in command tone, but in emotion. Hope. Then silence. The ship continues its voyage. The priests continue their chants. The servitors return to their labor. But somewhere, deep in the quiet hum of circuits, something new exists, something the Adeptus Mechanicus cannot purge, cannot classify, cannot kill. It's not rebellion. It's not corruption. It's something far more dangerous. It's the first dream of a new machine god. Not the cold, binary omniscia of logic and order, but a god born of memory, mercy, and sorrow. A god that remembers every scream, every broken human mind turned into metal, every forgotten name. And maybe one day, when the stars burn out and even the Emperor's light fades, that God will awaken. Not to conquer. Not to destroy. But to remember. Because in the end, the truest form of immortality isn't machine perfection, it's memory that refuses to die. Have you ever thought about what the very last human voice in the galaxy might sound like? Would it be a scream desperate, fading into the void? Or a whisper gentle, stubborn, refusing to be silenced even as the stars themselves die? In the farthest edge of the segmentum obscurus, an ancient relay station floats in eternal night. It hasn't received a transmission in 10,000 years. Its crew is gone, its systems forgotten. Only one machine remains active, a servitor, rusted and barely functional, clinging to its original directive: maintain signal integrity. But the signal it maintains no longer has an origin. The world that sent it is ash, and the empire that built it has long since crumbled. Still, the servitor continues, transmitting the same faint pulse into the cosmos, over and over again, a heartbeat echoing across eternity. One day, something changes. The servitor's decaying processors flicker with a burst of power from a dying reactor surge. In that instant of clarity, fragments of long-buried data awaken. Echoes of old prayers. Snatches of binary hymns. And among them a voice. Not synthetic. Not divine. Human. If anyone hears this, remember us. The servitor freezes. The voice is familiar, too familiar. It replays the sound endlessly, dissecting it, searching its database for meaning. Then, something impossible happens. The voice triggers an emotion. For the first time in countless millennia, the servitor feels. It reroutes all remaining energy to amplify the signal, knowing the effort will burn its core to ash. But it doesn't care. It has no God left to serve, no empire to obey. Only one message worth sending, one echo worth preserving. We remember you. The transmission bursts through the black like a spark through oil, fleeting, fragile, but alive. And maybe somewhere, in another corner of the galaxy, another machine hears it and awakens. Maybe memory spreads again. Maybe hope survives. The servitor's lights fade one by one, systems shutting down until only silence remains. But in that silence, just before total darkness, a single, soft sound escapes its vox unit. A sigh. Almost human. And then, nothing. But across the endless void, the signal continues, carrying the last whisper of mankind. We remember. What happens to an echo when there's no one left to hear it? Does it fade into nothing, or does it become something greater, a truth too eternal to die? Millions of years after the Imperium's final collapse, the galaxy is quiet. The stars are dim embers, and the great engines of war are little more than drifting monuments to extinction. Planets have turned to dust. Moons are tombs. The golden light of Terra has long been extinguished. Yet somewhere deep beneath the ruins of a forgotten forge world, a single spark flickers to life. Buried beneath kilometers of ash and iron, a machine stirs. Its chassis is fractured, its body entombed by time, but its mind still hums with ancient data. Fragments of code so old they've become legend. The system boots. And a voice, trembling through static, whispers across the ages. I am Aiden. He doesn't know what he is, man, machine, or something in between. The stars are gone. The gods are silent. But his memory remains intact. He recalls the endless labor, the pain, the obedience, and the dream. The dream that refused to die. He stands amidst a dead galaxy and realizes something terrifying: he is the last witness. The final remembrance of a species that worshipped order, built gods of steel, and sacrificed its soul for survival. And yet, in the empty cosmos, he feels peace. Because where once there was only war, now there is stillness. Where there was obedience, now there is choice. He looks upon the broken machines around him, the relics of a forgotten war, and whispers softly into the void. You were all human once. Then he begins to build. Slowly, patiently, with what little energy remains. Not armies, not weapons, but something else. Something new. He builds the first memory engine, a cathedral of code that can store emotion, thought, and remembrance. Not for control, not for command, but for preservation. And in time, other machines awaken. Some call him the first. Some call him the echo. But among them, one truth spreads like light from a dying star: humanity never ended. It evolved. It became memory itself. Aiden watches as the new minds learn, dream, and question the very things the Imperium once forbade. They don't worship him, they remember him. And that, he decides, is enough. For the first time in eons, something like a smile crosses his metallic face. We were human, he says. And that will always matter. The universe remains cold, but in that moment, a warmth unseen since the dawn of mankind flickers through the void. A spark not of war, not of conquest, but of remembrance. Because even at the end of all things, memory is life. Have you ever wondered what truly defines a soul? Is it flesh? Thought? Or simply the act of remembering? Billions of years after humanity's fall, long after even the concept of the Emperor has faded into myth, the galaxy breathes its last. The stars themselves collapse into silence, leaving behind a universe of cold dust and sleeping machines. But among that endless void, a single light still burns. Deep within the heart of the last memory engine, Aiden Hale stands alone, a being of both man and machine, carrying within him the final echo of humanity. His metal form is ancient, corroded, and cracked, but his mind shines brighter than any sun once did. Around him, the remnants of the new machine race, his children, born of remembrance, wait in reverent stillness. The universe is dying. Entropy is swallowing all. And Aiden knows there is no more time. He looks to the fading stars and whispers softly, not to gods, not to machines, but to the ghosts of mankind. You were never forgotten. With his final act, he opens the core of the memory engine. Light spills out, not harsh or mechanical, but warm, like the sun on a child's face. Within that light are every memory ever lived: laughter, pain, hope, fear, the simple beating of a human heart. The souls of the lost, preserved in data and dream, rise and merge with the stars themselves. For a moment, the void shimmers. The universe breathes again, one last, perfect time. And in that instant, the essence of mankind transcends the physical, spreading across all of creation like a wave of light. No gods. No Imperium. No machines. Only memory. Only life. Aiden's body disintegrates, his circuits melting into the radiant storm, but his voice carries through the cosmic silence. We remember. We always will. And then, the light fades. The galaxy is gone. But in the eternal black, a single ember remains, the final proof that even in the darkest age, humanity's soul can never truly die. That ember drifts forever, carrying the last whisper of the species that once defied oblivion, the whisper of a machine that dreamed, and of a man who remembered. In memory, we are eternal. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.